So today I want to talk about fears, or what INTPs probably fear, being of course that nobody fears the same things and everybody thinks differently about the world and about what makes sense to be feared um, or not. And some fears are not even rational, you can't rationalize them. Um, so here's a small list of 5 things that I think INTPs would probably relate to about their fears. Starting with number 5, that is not making sense or becoming the ones that are illogical. Being that INTPs are known for liking truth and liking logic and reason, becoming the ones who don't rationalize right or correctly, or having the world views, the wrong views about things. Because INTPs like to claim, and we are to an extent, um, we like to say that we are open minded and to say that no matter the other person's argument, no matter the other person's point of view, we will always consider it. And it's true to an extent. Obviously, not everyone's point of argument or ideas must be considered because not everyone makes sense. But um, becoming the ones that don't make sense, that start or that make an illogical argument, is probably something that we fear, to be the ones that need to be corrected about our thinking and about our logic. Because we can get stuck in our ways. Because being that we see the world in the most realistic way possible, or I think that we like doing that and that's what we do, to not being able to do so, or seeing the world in a way that it's not reasonable and rational and logical, is probably something that not maybe scare us a bit, because we don't know when we are not making sense. No one does, especially if you are under bias. It gets difficult. So that's 5. 4 is too much procrastination, for obvious reasons, because that's kind of what we do too. And obviously, the more you procrastinate, the less you get done. And even though that we consider thinking an activity, and you could ask an INTP, what did you do all day? And even if the INTP just laid in bed, if he was thinking, we would probably consider thinking an activity, because it is, after all, an activity. And it's not really an easy one, because it demands a lot of you to think about the possibilities, to think about the reason why things happen and why, and it involves a lot of effort to think about something reasonably and logically. It takes a lot of effort out of you, so it's clearly an activity that it's not that easy. Especially, that's probably why some people don't do it that often, I guess. 3 is mental disorders. Obviously, everyone fears mental disorders, but the thing is, INTPs live inside their minds, and we often live inside our minds more than we live outside of it, that we are aware of the world. And so that means that if you develop a mental disorder, and being that that's the place where you are more often in the world inside your mind, then having a mental disorder is really going to be destructive, because we don't really like, or we don't really pay attention to the outside world more than our minds. So it would be like having a fire in your house, because that's where we live most of the time. That's where we make our thoughts and our abstract thinking, and where we rationalize things and weigh them between rational and unreasonable and irrational. So having a mental disease, a mental disorder, that would put that in question, put your thoughts into question, would be destructive, would be really, really bad. Like, for example, the case of John Nash, the mathematician, that later won a Nobel Prize, I think in economics. And he had an imaginary friend that he didn't know that it was imaginary because he has schizophrenia. And in university he met this supposedly friend of his called Charles Herman. And he would talk to Charles Herman and talk to him about his theories and about what he was thinking and all that. But no one could see Charles Herman. So he quickly realized that Herman wasn't real. And that is probably one of the things that we fear, to get into a state that we can't trust our own thoughts and we can't trust our own critical thinking about stuff. So that's why it's in 3. 2 is loneliness, because again, INTPs are introverts and we prefer our time alone most of the times than being with people. We kind of hope that people don't really forget us, because we know that sometimes we kind of abuse the time that we spend alone to maybe weeks, maybe months, who knows. And we kind of hope that when we get out of our rooms that people will still remember that we exist. So loneliness kind of really takes a toll on us, I think all of us, independent on the type. But especially I think us, because we spend particularly long time alone. So being alone is good, but feeling lonely may be really, really bad. And the first one is being useless. Obviously everyone fears being useless, but again, this has to do with point 4 about procrastination. Again, the more you procrastinate, the less you do, and the less you get done. So, and the world values action more than thought. It matters more to the world and to society what you get done than what you think about doing and how you do it. It's more valuable to get things done than to think about getting things done, obviously. So being useless has to do with probably the fact that we understand that we waste a lot of time with stuff, again with procrastination, that it's not worth our time, that we could be using to read something interesting or to, I don't know, do homework or study some discipline. And we fear that in the future we become useless, even though that we have all the knowledge that we have, that there will be nothing done. Because it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have, really, to the world. It matters how much you can do and how much you have done. And it doesn't matter if you know everything about everything. It matters about what you can actually do, what your actual capabilities are, and what you know that you can put into physical practice. So that's being useless, why being useless is probably number 1 next to loneliness, because it's something that will affect your entire life afterwards. If you become useless, then you have no point, and that's really bad. I think that's it. So, not making sense, too much procrastination, mental disorders, loneliness, and being useless. I think it's probably the points that maybe more INTPs would agree with me. So, thanks.
I went to Wheeler.
Good.
There is no William March.
Of course there is. I've been working for him.
Doing what? Breaking codes? Dropping packages in a secret mailbox for the government to pick up.
How could you know that?
Saul followed you. He thought it was harmless. They've never been opened.